that stuff happen when guys are branching out. But Trey's a fierce competitor, and he gets it honestly from his dad, and he'll be a guy to beat around Wayne County for time to come.
Yeah, I think that one's that's going to be fun to watch develop over the next 3 to 4 years. I think he's it's only going to get better, and we see one win there in 2019. I would expect to see that number go to 3 or 4 in 2020.
All right, and then number 19, we have the second All-Star on the list with Corey Eliason. Corey picked up a win. It wasn't an All-Star win. It was the preliminary night at the Sprint Car World Championship that Friday night. So on his rookie year with the All-Stars, he got that Mansfield win, and then he got a couple second places and a couple fourth places as well. So all in all, not a bad year for Corey Eliason in Ohio.
I think he had a pretty good year all in all, whether it's in Ohio or out of Ohio. But, for the amount of races he ran in Ohio, a good showing. And he's a heck of a driver, man.
He'll be back in the Rudine 26 next year as well. So there's no silly season with him this year.
There's a pretty common theme when there's drivers coming out of California coming to Ohio. You think California elbows up, get on the gas and muscle it around, but Ohio's kind of notorious for these slick tracks, and I can think of more than one that has come to Ohio and been pretty successful right off the bat. Carson Macedo sets quick time his first night in sprint car at Attica and wins his first night at Fremont. Buddy Kofoid, obviously, that spoke for himself this season, and Kyle Larson doesn't do too terrible around here either. So California links pretty well to Ohio, it looks like.
Yeah, and another tidbit on Corey, he picked up that big 10,000 to win show at Virginia Motor Speedway to open the All-Star season. So assuming that's probably the only 410 show they had, so he led the Virginia track points this year.
All right, with number 18, we have Justin Peck. Justin picked up 2 wins early on this year. I believe it was actually the opening weekend that Ohio had. He ended up picking up a win at Atomic Speedway, and then I think the next day or next weekend at Waynesfield early on in the year before he got picked up by Premier Motorsports to join the All-Stars. But decent start of the season for Justin there.
I believe he was leading the fast points, if I'm not wrong, before they picked him up, because those were both fast shows he won, and it looked pretty dominant in both showings. It was good to see him to get to branch out and run a little bit against a tougher schedule.
Number 17, we have the almost Attica Raceway Park track champion, Chris Andrews. Chris had a couple wins on the year, a couple seconds. He was going to win the Attica Raceway Park Championship, but something broke in the car, and that ended up giving DJ Foose the championship. But all in all, going to a new team, the Ken Mackey 25M, Chris had a solid season for sure.
Yeah, he turned that Mackey car into a car to beat around Ohio this year, and Ken had brought it down a few times the previous year, and usually didn't do too well when he came down to Ohio, but I know that car has been a Butler track champion in the past, and he nearly added a Attica track championship for that car owner as well.
All right, and then number 16, he had quite the limited schedule as he continues to watch his kids grow up and go to their sporting events, but coming in at 16 was the always threat Byron Reed. He ended up picking up 3 wins at Attica this year, as well as a couple other top 5s and quite a few top 10s, which is not bad for the limited schedule that he ran.
Yep, 12 top 10s and 21 starts this year for Byron Reed, which is pretty dang impressive.
Not to mention, I think his first night out at Attica, I believe he won, and Attica was not easy to get around this year. A lot of the drivers kind of said it had changed quite a bit from last year, and evidently Byron either liked the change or he didn't think so at all. It was cool to see him come out of the gates and win his first night.
I think you could say that probably for both Attica and Fremont. I think the track prep at both of those this year kind of threw everyone for a loop.
Agreed, yeah.
All right. And then number 15, we had Chad Kemanaugh. Chad, who ended up joining Liz Mattis Racing with the K4 alongside Johnny Garvin. Chad kind of struggled a little bit earlier this year, but later on he ended up getting his feet underneath him. He ended up picking up a nice win at Sharon Speedway, and he also added A.J. Havens there later on in the season, and I think that helped him out quite a bit.
Yeah, Chad ran a really mixed schedule this year. He ran that Silver Crown car for Hampshire, as well as running a few West Coast shows, I believe. I think he ran a couple over there, but he ran a pretty limited schedule for Ohio, but he still finished pretty well in the end.
Picking up AJ there at the end of the year, I think, was pretty big for Chad. I think he was doing a lot of that on his own with his kids, which is, it's always cool, but it's hard to be competitive at that level as who he races against and as often as he was racing. It was cool to see them get them going there at the end of the year, picking up a win over at Lernerville too. John run third, I believe.
All right. And then number 14, we have the just ever-present Danny Smith. Danny picked up a feature win at Atomic, which was probably his 44th, 45th year in a row with a feature win. As the Knoxville Mob said on Twitter a year or two ago, if it weren't for the Civil War, Danny Smith would probably have quite a few more feature wins.
The crazy thing, Danny Smith only started 14 shows in Ohio this entire year since he ran so many USCS shows down south, and he got 9 top 5s in those 14 attempts. Most of those at Atomic.
And you see Danny go down to, I guess probably come up to Waynesfield for him, and he 3/8 high banked, slicked off racetracks, kind of an old man's deal. And tell you what, a quarter-mile bull ring, I was amazed that they asked him at the Waynesfield drivers meeting. They asked him if he was able to make all 40 laps, and he did. So that amazes me at his age and maybe his exact health, that guy can still get around a bull ring for 40 laps and be competitive doing it.
And be consistent, that's the thing. You look at like you said, 14 races and 9 top 5s. I mean, that's consistency is the key there.
Saying Danny, that last race at Waynesfield, Danny just put on one heck of a show, making it into the feature. That heat race was pretty fun to watch.
That's what I heard. My buddy actually said, "Man, who's this Danny Smith? He's new to racing." He goes, "Who's that Danny Smith? He put on a show at Waynesfield." I said, "Yeah, he's about 107 years old." But he was amazed.
Now Danny's going to have to come on and defend himself. He's going to hear this. There's somebody going to tell him about it.
Don't tell him it was me talking.
Okay. Okay.
This is all Jacob talking.
Oh, man. So, all right. There were only 2 drivers that didn't have a win that were on this list, and number 13 was one of those 2 drivers. We had Lee Jacobs come in at number 13. Lee struggled quite a bit this year. As we kind of mentioned earlier, he and A.J. Havens kind of parted ways there, but Lee ended up second in the fast points, and although it was probably not a great year for him, to see him at number 13 is definitely positive.
Yeah, Lee definitely struggled around Attica most of the time this year when he was there, and chasing the fast points also caused him to miss quite a few Ohio shows, so that dipped him a little bit in the points. He was actually 6th place last year, with 11 top fives, and now he was down to 8 top fives this year within Ohio's borders.
All right. And then number 12. Number 12 is someone I kind of want to talk a little bit about. So number 12 is Cale Conley. I would have to imagine that if Cale Conley doesn't miss the end of August and almost all of September, Cale Conley is going to be almost top 8 driver in this. But he said he had someone quit on him, and so he ended up missing all those big races there. But still, Cale had 2 wins, a couple second places, a couple third places, and put together a very solid season, even though the Dave Jessup 7K kind of shut down abruptly.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with how he was able to get his own team with the 3C up and running so quickly and actually be competitive out of the gates. I think their first show was the Sprint Car World Championship at Mansfield that eventually ended up getting rained out, but even when he came out there, he was pretty fast out of the gates.
That was definitely something I wanted to talk about too, is that car was just, like you said, fast right out of the gate.
I think you can give a lot of credit to both guys. Cale's a great wheelman. Brian Kemenall he's been around a time or two. He knows what he's doing, and when you give Brian a good equipment, great car, and a kid that Cale wants to win, you're only going to see good things out of that. They're and obviously they work well together, and good to see Brian back up and rolling, and looks like he's enjoying himself a lot more at the racetrack.
Also, I think Cale Conley gets my vote for Cutest Kid Award, just to throw that out there. Baby Louie seems to be very photogenic and loves the time at the races.
There's still a kid on the top, and he's on this list, that I would have to put my vote for Cutest Kid on. But we'll talk about him when we get there.
All right. All right. So number 11, we have the Steel City Outlaw, Tim Schaefer. Tim, I wouldn't say he struggled this year. Compared to last year, they didn't get $100,000 to win race right off the bat, but they still got the Outlaw win. He got to win the opening night of the Jim Ford Classic at Fremont, and then he had 5 other second-place finishes.
Yeah, the split with him and Demian Rudzik definitely probably hampered his total numbers this year across the board. Actually, the first 2 years I've done this, he was second both times, even though he's not a Ohio driver, so to speak. So he's always very dominant around the state when he is here. He did very well in the Gorby car once he started driving that.
Yeah, he missed, about 3 weeks of races there before he got back in a ride, and then most of those were outside of the state, if I remember correctly.
All right. And then now we're finally into the top 10. With number 10, we have the 2019 Wayne County Speedway champion, Dean Jacobs, still getting it done. He had 4 wins, a couple other top 5s as well. It was definitely good to see Dean do so well this year.
Yeah, Dean led the McClure Motorsports car to its second consecutive Wayne County Track Championship, taking over the reins from Jordan Ryan. And it seems like that car can get around that place pretty good, no matter who's wheeling it. I mean, Dean winning at would it be his grandfather or his father's track they built?
I believe it's his grandfather.
Right, yeah. That's what I was thinking. So that's also got to be pretty special, too. I don't know when the last time a Jacobs has actually won the track championship there, but that's got to be special for the family as well.
Yeah, Dean's a gasser. I'm glad to see him back in a ride. That's a guy that you got to grow up, watch and race, and knowing he still wanted to race and not having to ride that's a bummer. But getting to jump in the 9 and prove that he's not afraid to go fast, and picked up a top 5 there at the All-Star show during Speed Week. So he proved he was still a good car when when the big dogs came in. That was really